Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This week we've got Julian Dismore on the line. He's a TV producer and a media trainer. Welcome, Julian.
Hi, Ben.
Hi. Well, first things first, let's start by asking you, where did you start off and what did you do to get into the industry?
Well, I was originally accepted to university to read natural sciences because I wanted to cure cancer. But then I found out they had Saturday morning lectures, and well, I didn't fancy Saturday morning lectures, so unfortunately, cancer had to take a second priority, and I transferred to economics, which was a good move because it was a complete DOS compared to natural sciences. But then halfway through my university, I thought I don't want to go into banking or accountancy or the city. So I thought, yeah, I fancied an interesting job with a lot of variety, a creative job. So I did a bit of university radio and a bit of student journalism and a night school course in studio directing, and really enjoyed it. So I thought, yep, I want to get into show business. I want to work in television when I grow up. So when I graduated, I applied for loads of jobs, had no luck at all, was about to give up. I went to the University Careers Office, and they said, well, York's Television called this morning looking for a researcher for the science department. Why don't you go for that? So I went for it. I got accepted for interview, but I wrote the wrong address down for the interview, so I turned up late, and I thought I'd blown it. So as a result of which, I went into the interview and just joked my way through it, told a few anecdotes, and just gone really well with the interviewer. And as a result, I got the job, bizarrely, despite not preparing for the interview, doing all things wrong. But I got in just because I built up a chemistry and a rapport with the interviewer, and that was it. I was at York's Television in the science department and off and running.
Right, amazing. And was there any flags along the way, Julian? Was there any sort of signpost for you that you sort of knew you had a place in the industry, or did you literally fall into that? Was there any North Star for you guiding you in there?
Well, it's interesting because the first department I worked for was the science department at York's Television, and they made a show called Don't Ask Me in the 1970s. The guy called Magnus Pike with a scientist whose arms were all over the place. And I just loved that show, and that was one of the reasons why I thought, as a kid, I might want to work in television.
Ah, right, yeah.
Really, really hard-hitting documentary, bizarrely, about a hospital for criminally insane people called Rampton. And I was very young when I watched it. It must have been 12, 13, but it was an amazing documentary made by a legendary figure called John Willis. And again, when I started at Yorkshire Television, his department, the YTV documentaries department, which I also ended up working for, a fantastic department, that was in the next door room to the science department. So it was like I'd come home in some respects, working for those guys.
Yeah. And so you could probably, you've got a bit of luck, I guess, with that interview, and how much, how much effort did it take before then? You must have sort of been applying for plenty of jobs before that. How did you find that?
I applied for lots of jobs when I graduated, and it was much different applying for jobs in those days than it is now. There were no computers, there was no email, so it's almost so long ago I was writing my application letters in quill and ancient parchment. It was a long time ago. I just wrote to Pebble Mill and various BBC stations, and I got an interview at Pebble Mill, and she just said, well, you've not got a voice for radio, and she probably thought you haven't got a face for TV either. So I didn't get very far, and I applied for various schemes. And I was very close to taking a job as a market researcher because I'd done some market research in the States when I went there for 3 months after I graduated. And market research was also, asking questions. I'm an inquisitive kind of guy. So I was accepted to do a job in market research, and I was this close to taking it. And if that YTV job hadn't come up and I hadn't been accepted for it, my destiny could have been very, very different.
Yeah. Sometimes you just get like a call out of the blue, don't you? And your luck changes in that respect. And so you started in the science sort of field in television, and that made you, you got your foot on the ladder in that respect. What was it like from that point onwards? Did you start to find the roles that really suited you, and you tried a few things, tried your hand at a few different things, perhaps?
Well, it's interesting. I originally went into television to bring down Mrs. Thatcher, who was a controversial politician of the 1980s.
Oh, right, I see.
And the first show I worked on was a quiz program. And that's one thing I advise to any newcomers watching, and that is, don't be too picky. Just get into television and accumulate skills, accumulate contacts, accumulate references, and then potentially work your way towards your dream genre. As it was a quiz show, it was more sophisticated than that, in that it was about mathematics and puzzles. It bizarrely got 7 or 8 million viewers at 7 o'clock on ITV on a Wednesday night. It was called Fun and Games. And I really enjoyed it. And it became rapidly apparent to me that TV was just what I wanted to do. And I was very lucky that soon after that, I worked on some science documentaries, real science stories, stranger than fiction, which is called science fiction. And then I was kind of headhunted to go into the documentaries department to make a series called Jimmy's, a hospital series based at St. James in Leeds, which was kind of the original observational documentary in some respects. And that was working for a legendary figure called Irene Cockcroft, who was, the queen of observational documentary, who was a mentor figure for me. And that's another bit of advice I'd give for newcomers industry, and that is find mentors that can help you progress, can train you up, can really sort of cultivate your skill set. And what you find is they give you opportunities. If they get on well with you and they like you, they'll give you opportunities as well as training you up. So I was very lucky. I was, ensconced in the science department and then in the documentaries department. And I did a lot of documentaries with First Tuesday. And then I was sort of moved into the international factual department. So I got to fly all around the world making documentaries and wildlife programs. And I was an undercover paedophile in the Philippines, exposing sex tourists. And
oh wow.
When I was doing the wildlife programs, I was bitten by a king cobra, and I fell off Krakatoa and chased up trees by rhinos and whatnot. And so it's amazing adventures and life endangering escapades, which has meant I've got a lot of anecdotes to tell my grandchildren if and when my sons pull out the fingers.
Absolutely. It sounds like there's never a dull moment there, Julian. But being that, being the sort of series producer, is that where you've found your groove, so to speak? Is that where you really sort of landed on something that, yeah, this is what I want to do day in, day out?
Well, I've been series producing for 25 years now, and I would say it isn't the most enjoyable job in television. My really enjoyable times over the last 25 years, my last 33 years were researching. As a researcher, that's a great job because you get to meet the interesting people, go to the amazing places, hear the fantastic stories without that relentless pressure of actually delivering a television program, which is quite stressful. Or I've always found it quite stressful anyway. I've always enjoyed the directing, although that is also stressful. And I've always enjoyed the editing because I can edit on Avid. So I do a lot of the editing for my programs, and I love that process of having the rushes and then jigsawing them together to create a story. Series producing is one of those situations where you get to a position where the bits you really enjoy, aren't at the forefront. So you're on location less. You're sometimes meeting the people less, although I do a lot of casting for some of my shows. And you have that kind of, the pressure of delivering a great program on budget, on schedule, keeping the execs happy, keeping the channel happy, keeping your team happy, which I've always found quite difficult because of all the different things you've got to, all the challenges you've got to overcome in terms of schedule and budget and the pressure from you from above. So series producing is quite a tough gig.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you get to mold a show. You get to, when a show goes out, you really feel it's got your imprint on it. So there are swings and roundabouts in that particular role.
Yeah. It's interesting you say, people when they're starting out, they don't probably realize about, there's a budget and there's an exec board and there's all this responsibility. And they may think, they might want to just apply to be a producer or a director, and it probably doesn't work out like that. You need to start somewhere. And those other roles are just as crucial as well. You could be the research assistant, you could be even an accountant working on a film shoot and still, be a part of that crew, right?
Exactly. I mean, I sometimes sort of perceive myself a bit like an opera conductor. An orchestra conductor, and you've got the strings, you've got the percussion, you've got all the different parts, and as a producer you're trying to get them all to play the same tune. And people have different skills, they have different disciplines and different passions, but you're trying to make sure they're all on the same wavelength. And as part of the orchestra, the runner and the accountant and the production coordinator and the edit assistants are just as important in a positive way and in a negative way. So, a runner's role is, making teas and coffees, obviously, and keeping the show on the road on that level and getting release forms signed. And many of the series I've series produced over the last 25 years have had serious problems because certain release forms haven't been signed.
Yes.
Mistakes, haven't got release forms signed, and you can't use that contributor's contribution. And I've had almost series drop for that reason, because release forms are so important these days. And I've had big legal issues as well because edit assistants haven't got tapes of shows to me on time for me to watch before broadcast. So every part of that machine, every cog on that wheel has a crucial role. And one thing to say to people wanting to get into the industry, it's really important, I think, to have shooting skills and camera skills that you've acquired at university or elsewhere. It's really important to have edit skills to be able to edit and be able to use Adobe Premiere and all these things, often at university or self-taught. Like my eldest son, he self-taught himself all these skills. But fundamentally, your first jobs will not be directing. Your first jobs will not be editing. There'll be entry-level positions as a runner, an edit assistant, a production coordinator. They'll be what you're starting off as doing. And it's those roles you need to convince employers you can do. Not be a great artist, directing a wonderful drama. You need to be able to convince your early employers that you can be organized, you can be punctual, you can be resilient, you can deliver on all those skills you need to keep the show on the road.
Yeah.
And it's very important that youngsters believe, understand that.
Yeah, and it's that mix of skill set between, I mean, as you've just said, some people have some formal qualifications, either through the colleges or universities, or even some of the professional sort of qualifications, but some people don't, and they're self-taught. And so long as you can apply yourself, and how important are those soft skills, Julian, to include in that mix?
I personally think that the best training I ever had for working in television was working behind a bar for 2 summers.
Yeah.
I always say to students that don't underestimate the importance of putting on your CV any bar work, any waitering or waitressing or retail work or security work, whatever it is, put it on your CV because it shows you can talk to ordinary people, you can work hard, you understand hierarchy, you understand punctuality. So it's really important you've got those social skills, those soft skills. And, the people I've seen progress really well in television are the popular guys, the people who are good to have around, the people who you want on set with you, want in an office with you, that amiability, that cheerfulness goes a hell of a long way. And again, it's part of a runner's job description. No matter how wet you are, no matter how cold you are, no matter how miserable you are, no matter how much you feel exploited by tough bosses, keep on smiling, keep on laughing at their jokes, and keep them sweet, because you need a reference out of them. And to be honest, as a runner, you need to be fun to have around. It's a very important part of your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about falling off Krakatoa and being bitten by the snake, Julian. Are they highlights or lowlights? Can you tell us some of your highlights of your career? What stands out for you?
It's interesting. The wildlife series I made for Channel 4, Animal Planet, National Geographic, at the time were an ordeal, tramping through jungles and, days on end with very little sleep, where you're not top of the food chain, in tough filming conditions, which can lead to sort of, frictions within the crew and with the talent and the presenter. At the time, they're tough. You look back on them and they're the most amazing life experiences, the things I've seen, the people I've met, the animals I've seen in their natural habitats. You just wouldn't swap that for the world. So many of my best anecdotes are from those times. As terms of pure enjoyment, the most enjoyable stuff I've done is the cricket filming I've done in India for the IPL cricket tournament, because I love cricket, I love India, I love socializing. There's a lot of socializing and partying goes on around the IPL, or there was then, probably not so much now during COVID. That's purely enjoyable. But I've tried to find something enjoyable out of all the productions I've worked on, all the programs I've worked on, both learning things, learning new skills, learning new techniques, the people I've worked with, and indeed the people I've met. Because if you've got a camera on your shoulder, or a notepad in your hand, or a radio recorder in your hand, then people reveal their souls to you. They tell you their stories. They tell you, some horrendous experiences they've been through, but they reveal their inner selves to you because they want you to tell their story, and that's a privilege. And that's what I've been lucky enough to experience for the last 33 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned about COVID and the pandemic then, Julian. So I've been sort of discussing with the guests the effects it's having on the industry. There's a lot of remote work happening, a lot of virtualized, sort of meetings and workshops and all kinds of stuff now. What have you been doing sort of recently to sort of counteract that and help the newcomers?
So this time last year, I was filming a series called The Mega Council Estate Next Door in Islington. So I was walking up and down the streets of Islington, trying to find people to appear on the program, and we filmed right up to lockdown, actually. So how I didn't catch COVID then, I will never know, because I was really, going to a lot of places, a lot of pubs, a lot of nightclubs, and meeting a lot of people. Then we had lockdown, and luckily I could edit. So I was able to actually edit that series at home on my laptop. So I edited the show. That got me through to May, to delivery. And then I was, in a bit of a pickle, because I couldn't go on location because it was lockdown, and even when lockdown eased, I wasn't going to go on location because I've got a disabled son.
Okay.
So son who's severely disabled, and I couldn't take the risk of bringing COVID back into the house. So I thought, what shall I do? Well, I've been doing training courses in media skills for 15 years now, between television jobs, both for students on how to get into the broadcasting industries, and academics in presentation skills, and lawyers and PR people and Which Magazine and various other clients. And then one of my clients, Lancaster University, said, well, why not do your next course online via Zoom? We can't do it face to face. Why not do it? I said, oh, I'll give it a try. And it worked really, really well, because fundamentally, it's like the world has come to me in that presentation skills, and being able to come across well in this box is not an essential life skill. We are all TV presenters now,
Yeah.
You need to come across well in these boxes if you want to get jobs, if you want to, teach students, if you want to come across well in meetings and conferences and do presentations. So I've grown it since then. So it's great for me because I'm working from home. I love being at home, and it means I've been able to teach students from all around the world all at once, which is great, on how to get into the media industries and media skills and runner skills. I've been able to teach academics on lecturing and presentations and interview techniques. So I've been training Maastricht University, a local John Moores, business school lecturers, amongst others. I'm really enjoying it because I get to tell my anecdotes about falling off the tower and being bitten by king cobras and undercover paedophiles and being attacked by terrorists in Mumbai. I can tell all those stories and I haven't heard them all before. So that's great to get things warmed up, and then I can teach people. And teaching people is hard work. I realize now how hard work it is teaching. 9 or 10 hours a day, like my wife's been doing as a teacher for the last 30 odd years. But it's also great to pass on your knowledge and help people, and I'm really enjoying doing it.
I like it. Yeah, it's paying it forwards, as I like to do. And I always like to sort of tell the listeners about how important your online presence is. And so you must have sort of dealt with most of the apps by now. We've got Teams and Zoom and all kinds of similar video sort of conferencing apps. And is it which is more important, using the functionality or your personality, or what's the most important thing around it?
The key thing when coming across well on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and WebEx and all these platforms is production value, is professionalism. So it's just like being a television presenter. And I remember television presenters have all these advantages of directors and producers and camera operators. Well, we haven't got all those things. But there are things we can do, which is, first of all, frame ourselves right. So, don't be right back here with loads of dead space around you. Have a nice close-up, because people want to see faces, they want to see eyes. That's what we've evolved to do. As human beings, we've evolved to want to see faces and eyes for various reasons. The next thing, have to have a decent background. I'd avoid the green screens. They never quite work, in my opinion. They strobe a little bit and distracting. Have a nice depth to the background. Have a bookcase, maybe, without embarrassing books on it. Have decent sound, so you can be heard. Have decent lighting. So I've got 2 lights coming onto me right now. Have a window behind if there's enough light from outside. Don't be backlit and silhouette-y. Because all these things, if you're backlit, if you're out of focus, if you've got, a load of dead space, if you're badly framed, it reflects badly on you, on your brand, your personal brand, your university brand, whatever it is. If you look amateurish, and you're less likely to get that job.
Yeah.
Like a good presentation.
Yeah.
But then again, as part of that, as a presenter, you need some charisma, you need some personality, you need to throw some energy into it. Because cameras, whether it's a small camera on your laptop or a big camera with a big hairy ass cameraman behind it, they suck up positivity and emanate it and extrapolate it to the viewers. Yeah. They suck up energy in a good way, and charisma. And that's why presenters earn a lot of money, because they have that energy, that positive energy.
Yeah. And
your downbeat, it does the same thing. It amplifies negativity. So if you're low energy, then unfortunately that lens makes you even lower energy by the time it gets to the viewers, and you don't hold an audience, and you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. And the viewer could be a hiring manager, or it could be someone who's presenting a workshop or something like that. And as well as the video side, what about the sort of online profiles and stuff, the sort of portfolio side of having your online presence? And that must be one half of that as well. Is there much advice for sort of sprucing up those sort of portals and portfolio places?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, Reddit, Tumblr. I'm now on TikTok. Obviously, the world deserves to see my dance moves. Shane Warne, the cricketer, said that watching me dance was the most entertaining 15 minutes of his life, and he's had some entertaining 15 minutes as Shane Warne. But I'm no longer on Grindr, because I got completely wrong. It isn't dating for grandparents. Well, actually, I know it isn't, because I did a series for Netflix called Click for Murder. Social media related murders, and 3 of the murders were Grindr murders. So it is a dangerous world out there. So you do need to embrace these platforms. And one bit of advice I'd give to students and newcomers is embrace LinkedIn. You've got to be on LinkedIn. It's the professional world's telephone book. And the other thing about LinkedIn is, don't call yourself a student. Don't call yourself an undergraduate. Call yourself a runner or an edit assistant. Give yourself a profile which reflects what you want to advertise yourself as, what you want to be. So that the profile you give yourself on LinkedIn and other relevant social media platforms is extremely important. And bearing in mind, you need to pitch yourself to the market. And if you want to come across to get runner jobs, then make sure your social media on things like LinkedIn reflects your skills, your experience, all the things that make you more attractive to people looking for runners. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to achieve on LinkedIn. So calling yourself a first-class media studies graduate is not the way to go, because a first-class degree will make no difference. What matters is your skills, your relevant experience, and like I said, to an extent, your retail or bar work, or all those skills which show that you can talk to people.
Absolutely, that's good advice. It's like your personal brand online, essentially. Yeah. And what does success mean for you, Julian? What's the drive? What's the passion for you?
As far as I'm concerned, I've had the benefit of knowing lots of people, both from university and through my professional career. And some have done extremely well in terms of money. So I had a friend from uni who he went into the city. He's a very good friend of mine, and he retired at 31, a millionaire. got bored, and then did a bit more that kind of world in Dublin, and he's going to retire again, a multi-millionaire. So money's one thing. Within television, I've known people that have won a plethora of awards, and loads of awards, and have got, amazing, mantelpieces full of awards. That's another thing where you can monitor success. I know people who have sort of run television production companies who have, got companies that are fast, thriving, growing companies in terms of commissions and awareness within the industry. And that's another version of success.
Yeah.
All those things have merit. Personally, I gauge my world in that I'm very, very pleased with how my last 33 years have gone, because I've got so many stories to tell my grandchildren. I've been very, very lucky to have a lot of interesting work. I've got an anecdote for every occasion. My family are bored sick of them because they've heard them all so many times. But my grandchildren are fresh meat. Will be, hopefully, all being well. And indeed, people I come across, and I just love telling those stories, and I've benefited from those experiences, the people I've met, and indeed the people I've worked with. I've got some great friends from the last 33 years. So I feel very, very successful in that respect.
Yeah, they're great reasons. And I always like to ask my guests, Julian, if you could talk to your 18-year-old self now, what would you tell yourself?
Well, that's a hell of a question. So my 18-year-old self going into university, I think my advice to him would be to, what I say? I'd say to be as, I've always been a hedonist, and, wanted to live life and live life to the full and live life high octane and turbocharged. So I'd say keep that going, but also remember to sort of, chill out and think about other people's perspectives and empathy. Remember, you're not the center of the universe. And it's easy to think, I think, when you're an 18-year-old, there's the center of the universe, but you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for the listeners, if we want to find a little bit more about you, Julian, you've got a website and some social media handles, is that right?
That's right. So my website is www.directproductions.co.uk. As you can see on the screen there, that's got information about my upcoming media skills courses. So I train in how to get into television and how to get on once you're in. And there's blogs on there as well for advice on how to get into broadcasting and get on when you're in. And I'm also on social media. So that's at Direct Productions UK. So I'm on lots of social media with blogs and job opportunities. So every Thursday, for example, I put up job opportunities with people that I know are coming up. And also my YouTube channel's got lots of videos as well with advice for newcomers and existing people in broadcasting. And that's Direct Productions TV on YouTube.
That's awesome. Well, I'd just like to say thanks, Julian. It's been a great insight into Krakatoa and the snake in India and all those wonderful stories of your producing years. So thanks very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, but I enjoyed it.
All right, take care.